You are now tuned in to DM3 Entertainment. We talking boxing over here, from the champs to the chumps and anything in between. All we do is keep it real, so let's talk about it. Are they a boxer puncher? Are they a pure pugilist? Are they a knockout artist? This is what we want to know. But remember, it's all about the sweet science. DM3 Entertainment, let's go! What's up, YouTube? I'm back with another one. And this one is about Devin Haney being the undisputed champion, finally. Because we got a bunch of idiots out here still thinking that Loma, Timofimo, and Kambosos are undefeated. They never was. But I have this video clip here of Paulie trying to explain or try to convince you of this idiotic mess that the WBC put us through. But luckily, Devin, with the skills to pay the bills, cleared this all up, got rid of this nonsense of this French fry belt. And we're going to listen to what Paulie's trying to make us believe. But I'm going to stop and I'm going to clarify some stuff. And then after that, I'm going to let you know what the history says about it. So let's get into what Paulie's got to say, and I'm going to chime in. Let's go.
To the belt, the franchise title. So a lot of you may realize, if you're old enough, when the WBA super title started, right?
No, Paulie. The average individual watching this video or has seen your video is no older than Gen X, and half of them are casual fans who don't know rules and don't know how things were, and they don't even understand what you're talking about with this WBA, because we're talking about the WBC. But I see where you're going, so I'm going to let you continue.
Super title originally started for champions who had built up the privilege to have either a unified title where they unified it with another belt, or they'd made at least 5 title defenses. When they did that, the WBA president, Alberto Mendoza, said, you know what, these guys have earned the right to not have to fight mandatory. So I'm going to call them super champions. And if they are able to compete and win unified title, unify the title, or if they're able to defend the WBA title 5 times, I'm going to name them super champions, because people are only going to demand that they fight super fights at that point. They're not going to want to see them in mandatory fights. And I'm going to create a regular champion underneath it. Now, that didn't mean that the super champion existed in every weight class like he does now. Unfortunately, the greed has led them to now create a super champion in every weight class, and those stipulations no longer are in effect. The super champion just happens in every weight class. He's actually the real world champion in the WBA, and the regular champion is a secondary B-rated version of the WBA of the world title, of having the world championship. But initially, the way this process was started, the WBA champion, if he'd made enough defenses or if he unified, was called a super champion. This meant that not every weight class had a super champion. So if you were in a weight class and you had not accomplished either of those two things, you were the WBA world champion, you were the primary champion, but there was no super champion in your weight class. Like I said, this is before they got way too greedy and now just make a super champion in every weight class and a regular champion in every weight class. Why am I saying this? The WBC started the same situation with their title. They started in the manner that the WBA started originally. The WBC has done this in the same way the WBA had used to do this, in that the WBC created a franchise champion, because obviously the super champion, the moniker of super champion, is already taken by the WBA. Now, it's not my fault if every moron can understand what the word super means, but the word franchise is a little bit too complicated for some of you. Literally, the belts have the same meaning. Meaning, if there's a privileged WBC world champion who has a unified title or has made enough defenses, or if the WBC just deems him privileged, like they did Canelo when they made him a franchise champion at middleweight.
No, Paulie. No one's an idiot. The WBC has just made things way too complicated for no damn reason. And super is not the same as franchise. Franchise is something made up, and it's a made up belt, and it's a French fry belt. Is this McDonald's with this franchise mess? That's why we're glad that Devin became the undisputed, and that's why we're talking about it.
At the end of the day, that particular belt allows you to be the world champion, be the premier world champion in the weight class without having to make mandatories. It allows you to not have to deal with the mandatories, and they create a secondary champion that will deal with the mandatories. Yeah, you understand me? Are you following me? This is the same thing the WBA did with the super champion. So when Vasyl Lomachenko was made the WBA franchise champion, they did that just so he could go fight Teofimo Lopez for the undisputed title. They didn't do that. They didn't do that because they were looking to duck Devin Haney. They were looking to make a unified undisputed title fight. Now, if you guys noticed during the undercard last night, ESPN showed you the names of undisputed champions that have existed in the four-belt era, right? And their names of Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos were on that list, okay? During the introductions, Michael Buffer, however, did not name George Kambosos as the undisputed champion. He named Devin Haney as the WBC champion. Boxing gets in its own way because there's too many stupid people following along with stupid decisions, okay?
Well, Paulie, we are not going to trust or listen to ESPN, which is a hack of a sports network that's owned by the mouse, Disney, and all Disney is concerned with is making money. They are not truly invested in sports, and they truly are not invested in boxing. So why would we listen to someone who doesn't know what they're talking about? And there's no one stupid. What it is that individuals tend to think that because a bunch of casual fans want to listen to someone who really doesn't know hit boxing like they should, they listen to foolishness like that. And as we all know, Devin Haney in the history books is the only undisputed champ. Not Teofimo, not Kambosos, and definitely not Loma. So this is the reason why we're making this video and why I'm disputing what you're talking about. But go ahead and keep talking.
And the WBC is not going to try to fix it for you. They're not. If they know you're dumb enough to fall for it, they're not going to explain it to you the way I'm explaining it to you. Honestly, some of you are actually so stupid that despite my explanation right now, you're still not going to get it, okay? So going into the fight last night, for that reason, George Kambosos was the undisputed champion because he had
a unified champion, because he had 3 major belts, and the franchise belt meant nothing to nobody but the individuals who had the big head thinking they were somebody. Kambosos and Teo. That belt is a curse, and that's all it was. And like I said before, we're glad it's gone.
Won the franchise title from Lopez, who won it from Lomachenko. That franchise title, again, is the equivalent of the original WBA super title, only in the WBC version. Meaning that as that champion, you don't have to fight mandatories. You are elevated to a higher position where they only want to see you fight super fights, and they'll create a secondary champion to fight the mandatories. Now, obviously, with yesterday's unification, or whatever, if you want to call it a unification, it was really just throwing out a BS title.
See, Paulie, it's by foolishness, because you said he didn't have to fight any mandatories, but Kambosos was Teo's mandatory with one of the other real belts. Because, like you said, that fight this weekend was to fight for the undisputed and get rid of that nonsense of a belt called the franchise, the French fry belt.
We've got no debate anymore. We've got Haney as the WBC lightweight champion of the world. Hopefully the WBC no longer does this franchise bullshit because you guys don't seem to understand it. At least many of you don't. Some of you do. Many of you don't. And some even dumber than the other dumb ones just judge it based on skin color. But let's face it. Some of you that had a problem with me not calling Haney a WBC champion, if the roles were reversed and Haney was white and Kambosos was black, you would have been calling him the undisputed champion. You can be honest. I'm telling you because I can tell the way you came at me. I know your mindset. You're a racist, okay? So don't go there. There's no need to judge it from skin color. There's no need to judge it from an unparalleled point of view. You just need to watch and understand the way the business runs. And this doesn't mean you agree with it or I agree with it or anybody else agrees with it. Honestly, I don't like the 2 world titles in every weight class. I think the WBA actually started out with this, and I thought it was dumb when they started it, and then it got dumber when they just made a super champion in every weight class, and they made 2 world champions in every weight class. Hopefully the WBC doesn't graduate to that from this franchise bullshit that they have going on now. Okay.
Well, okay. That was Paulie giving his justification or making some type of excuse to try to make the franchise belt be worth something that it's not. But one thing he did say is that fighters, and I do agree with him, stop this foolishness of following a fighter just because of his skin tone or his nationality. Love the sport for what it is. If a fighter's a great fighter, no matter where he comes from, then support the greatness of his fighting technique and his skills and his level of intelligence in that ring, and support him. I don't care if you're an American and the person is from England, France, the Middle East. If he's a great fighter, then he's a great fighter. And that's how you should support a fighter. It should never be on some bias bull crap with a thing about because I'm a melanated person, I should support him. Or I'm an American, so I support him. No, support great fighters so that the sport can continue. Now we're going to get into this here next to give you the real rundown on what makes someone undisputed and why Devin Haney is the true undisputed fighter in the lightweight division, and history will have it as such. Let's go. Okay, we got Paulie's definition of undisputed, so now let's get the real definition of undisputed. This is an article from the Sporting News. It goes like this. History of the undisputed term in boxing. Prior to 1960, most of the world boxing champs were considered undisputed, simply due to the fact there was only one champion in each weight class. But as the popularity of the sport grew, so did the number of boxing organizations, with each group growing its own champion. Naturally, disputes over who should be recognized as the real world champion. Up until 2004, there were 3 major sanctioning bodies in boxing: the World Boxing Association, WBA, the World Boxing Council, the WBC, and the International Boxing Federation, the IBF. Since then, the World Boxing Organization, the WBO, has joined us the fourth official body in the sport. Now we're going to get into, on the next page, the current and past undisputed boxing champs, the only ones that matter. Okay, who's on the list? Undisputed list is like this. Canelo Alvarez, super middleweight. Terrence Bud Crawford, junior welterweight. Bernard Hopkins, middleweight. Jermaine Taylor, middleweight. Josh Taylor, junior welterweight. Alexander Usyk, cruiserweight. And Jamel Charlo, light middleweight. What is the difference between an undisputed and a unified champion? A unified champion is one who holds 2 or more of the major sanctioning titles in a division: the IBF, the WBA, the WBC, or the WBO. all 4 titles must be held by one fighter in order to become undisputed. None anymore. But this article before the fight reads, George Kambosos will put his WBO, WBA, IBF, and Ring Magazine belt on the line against WBC's champ Haney, with the pair fighting to decide who is the undisputed lightweight champ. And as you noticed, they didn't put anywhere in here franchise belt. Because like I said before, the franchise, the French fry belt, doesn't count except for big-headed individuals who think they're the undisputed champ, but they're not. Let's move on. George Kambosos has a WBC belt. It's the franchise, the AKA Canelo belt. But it's a WBC belt. Yet he needs to beat Haney to get the WBC strap. So that's making you understand that the belt that he had at that time, like I said, is just a belt, and it's really a curse because it makes you get the big head thinking you're somebody you're not. So it said confused. Well, they said watch this video. So we're going to watch the video. Let's go.
2021, George Kambosos Jr. made history, beating both the odds and Teofimo Lopez to claim the WBA, IBF, WBO, WBC franchise and the Ring Lightweight Championship belts. But that leaves one to go. American Devin Haney currently holds the WBC lightweight title, meaning he is the only person standing in the way of Kambosos becoming the undisputed lightweight champion. But why is that important? For starters, the winner of this fight will become only the 12th fighter in the 4-belt era to hold all 4 belts in a single weight class. They would also be the first undisputed champion of the lightweight division. And if Kambosos wins, he of course becomes the first Australian undisputed champion in the 4-belt era. The magnitude of this fight anywhere in the world would be enormous, but to have it in Australia, that is a truly once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So how did we get here? For George, he earned his belts through his split decision win over American Teofimo Lopez. This, of course, included Lopez's WBC franchise belt, a separate WBC belt he claimed from Vasily Lomachenko after beating him in 2020, which labelled him the franchise champion, which meant he did not have to make mandatory defences. It was this very decision that awarded Haney his belt, as he was named WBC champion as a result of Lomachenko's franchise status. Haney has had his WBC strap for a while longer than Kambosos, claiming the WBC interim world title in 2019, when he caused a 4th-round stoppage against Zahor Abduliev. Since then, the American has gone on to defend his belt 4 separate times, winning each of his bouts against Jojo Diaz, Jorge Linares, Yuriorkis Gamboa, and Alfredo Santiago via unanimous decision. 2 powerhouses of international boxing, 4 contested belts, 47 combined wins, 0 combined losses, 1 chance of becoming undisputed. On June 5th at Marble Stadium, George Kambosos Jr. will fight Devin Haney with the chance to make history on the line. We just don't know who will come out on top.
And as y'all see on the screen, it says there's only 8 men who have collected all 4 belts in the 4-belt era. And number 8 is Devin Haney. I don't know where they got this number 12 thing from off the video, but there's only 8 men who have done it in the 4-belt era. And world, welcome. It's Devin Haney, now a part of the list and now in history. So forget all the pretenders and the frauds. running around saying they was undisputed the whole time, but they never were. And whoever thinks they were, they need to go back and study some more boxing. So till next time, you know what's up. I'm out of here. Peace. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, do your brother a favor. Hit that subscribe. And then also, give me a thumbs up. Hit that like button. And share it with a friend. Sharing is caring. Until next time, I'll see you